Really surprised me yesterday with the Xander Perot's Bravery Charm build. I think this one's going to be a little different, but we'll have to see what sort of spice there is still remaining to be seen from Raging Bolt. It has way more utility than people give it credit for.
It's some interesting prize cards going out. We see right away from Yerco that Vitality Band, a tech item card, or tool card, I should say, no longer an item card, that he's playing in the list. Not relevant in this matchup, but it's a way that Lugia V-Star can KO Terrapagos EX. Kind of an interesting tech we've seen pop up more and more. Just that little damage fixing of the 10 extra damage, the 10 extra damage output can really make all the difference. Nothing too notable, I think, for either players. You got to prize something, of course, so I'm sure Yerco would like to have access to that Luminion or boss, but we'll see how things progress as this game is underway.
That is contrasted with Michael prizing to Professor Sada's Vitality. You're going to see that right away, opening with Hisui and Heavy Ball. You can look at your prize cards, find a basic Pokemon to take. Going to grab Teal Mask, Ogerpon here, but can see that he's missing out on 2 Professor Sada's Vitality. Might not be too terrible. After these prizes are shuffled and put back, if those end up on the bottom, after you take that first knockout, you've got the fuel for your second and third knockout. Hopefully, you know, the ideal map is a 2-2-2 classic.
It's honestly okay to prize a Professor Sada, or even 2, because you don't mind taking them out of your prize cards. The big issue is just finding them early on in the game. So as long as he can find the 1 or 2 remaining in the deck in the early turns, Michael should be okay here. But, well, yeah, with that prize cards being laid back out, looks like 1 Sada was moved up to the top. That could be an issue that we'll have to track.
And Michael looking through the deck, just even with the Hisui and Heavy Ball, you still have to take stock of all the energies. Earthen Vessel discards Pheasantipity to grab 2 energies now. 1 Grass Energy for the Ogerpon that we just saw enter the hand, and a Fighting Energy to attach to Raging Bolt in the active spot.
Yeah, so you mentioned some of the things we saw from Xander Perot's list yesterday, the 4 Bravery Charm, kind of the new thing in his list. Michael's actually not playing any copies of Bravery Charm unless I've missed them. I've looked over this deck list several times, but I do not see Bravery Charm listed here. And this is a matchup where Bravery Charm can actually be really nice, putting your Raging Bolt EX out of range of a Blood Moon or Saluna at the end of the game, putting your Ogerpons out of range of Lugia V-Star KOing them. So Michael may be missing out on those HP boosting tool cards in this matchup. We'll have to see.
Michael plays the Nest Ball, finds Squawkabilly EX, and finally shuffling up the deck. I can imagine that an Ogerpon will be played, those energies will be attached before a Squawk and Seize to discard the remainder of the hand and draw 6 fresh cards. Looking across the table at Yerko's board, has the Minccino. This is a devastating single prize attacker that can hit gigantic numbers, and Raging Bolt having to sacrifice energy and swing down on this little Pokemon can be very detrimental to the way their resources are expelled throughout the game, especially considering legacy energy potentially forcing an extra prize card needing to be taken.
Yeah, Minccino can be a great attacker in this matchup, like you mentioned, offsetting the potential prize trade of your opponent. And Yerco is playing just a 1-1 line of this Minccino. This Pokemon lineup is really similar to what we've seen from Rahul Reddy's popularized list, the 1-1 Minccino line. He's also got Raikou V in this deck list, but something he is playing is that Wellspring Mask Ogerpon EX. I believe it's something he played at his regional championship win just a couple of weekends ago. It's not going to be super relevant in this matchup, but he's taken a page out of Rahul's book with that Raikou inclusion.
Yeah, I love finding the second Earthen Vessel here to get more energy out of the deck, another attachment to Ogerpon, and now a discard into that pile with Squawk and Seize.
Yeah, that is 1 energy retrieval going down from Michael. Those energy recovery cards are incredibly important, so it's something we'll have to keep our eye on. He is playing a superior energy retrieval. It's something you don't see too often in Raging Bolt lists these days. It's been popular in the past.
Concealed
we'll
cards.
He can keep on churning through the deck here. He is really looking for a Sada. He can't play it this turn, but he just wants to have access to find it next turn. And to be honest, with this situation, I mean, his setup is excellent on turn 1. He's got 3 energy cards in play, so he may not even need to play Professor Sada next turn in order to get a 2-prize KO.
So many decks can have these explosive turn 1, turn 2, turn 3 back and forth, but with Lugia, you have a much better idea of their cadence. But Iono comes out from Yerco. Both players will shuffle their hands, put them on the bottom of the deck, and then draw new cards.
Yerco may be a little upset to see that hand go to the bottom. It had 2 Archeops in it, but he had to send it to the bottom with Iono because he has nothing else, and his draw here is really not good. No Lugia V, 4 energy cards, and the Iron Hands EX, which I think he's just going to have to put onto the bench so he doesn't just lose the game on the next turn. And we're going to see the very rare beat from Yerco, 10 damage onto the Raging Bolt. That's not super good, Skarzig.
Yeah, absolutely antithetical to Lugia's game plan, sending those Archeops back into the deck so you can't discard them. Legacy energy is in the hand. There's no main deck lightning energy, so if Iron Hands is going to be employed, that will need to be attached. But as Michael continues to move through his turn, we've got Teal Dance from Teal Mask Ogerpon getting another grass energy for a second Teal Dance, and now a second Raging Bolt just in time, hopefully for Professor Sada to get a double attachment here.
Michael has some interesting options. He does have Nest Ball in hand. He is playing Iron Bundle in his list, so he could have used that to force up the Iron Hands that Yerco put into play. But I honestly kind of like holding off here, just knocking out this Minccino. It is only going to give you one prize card, but this is a Pokemon that can be a big problem because it is a single prize Pokemon that can take a knockout on your multi-prize Pokemon. It is going to be the Iono from Michael, looking for a refresh. And looking at this list as well, one other thing I do want to point out, Michael here is playing the 101 Dusknoir line, something we've seen pop up here and there in these Raging Bolt lists. It's something we could see potentially come up in order to
Trekking Shoes finds Professor Sada's Vitality. So now this hand is absolutely gassed. The Raging Bolts are ready to go. You just have to discard a couple energies to cover the HP here on the Minccino.
And then Yerco is able to draw one card from the Gift Energy, promotes the Iron Hands. Let's see what he's got here. I'm not going to lie, I don't love the Iono play from Michael. He had everything he needed, and he knew Yerko's hand wasn't amazing. There wasn't a Lugia out in it, but he went for it, and Yerko, I think, is...
Aroma heads.
I think Yerko is probably thankful to have sent all those energy cards to the bottom of the deck so he didn't have to research them away.
Finds Archeops due to the effect of capturing Aroma. If you flip heads, you can find an Evolution Pokemon here.
And it looks like Archeops will be the choice, which is obviously the main thing you want to do as Yerko here. You got to get some Archeops in the discard pile, but then you also really need to bench a Lugia V. This game is going to get away from Yerko very, very quickly if he cannot get something established.
And now that the two Raging Bolts are there, even Ogerpon has a bunch of energy attached to it to be a secondary attacker. Michael is going to be in the driver's seat. At this point, Yerko's setup is completely at the behest of whether or not Michael has Prime Catcher or some such. Double checking here.
Yep.
How many Pokemon catchers is he on? Like, these Raging Bolt decks can kind of wax and wane between how aggressive they truly want to be.
And it doesn't look like he is playing any Pokemon catcher, which I think is what you expect from a list that does have the Dusknoir in it. They try to use that as their way to, like, maybe get a single prize offset, something like that.
And without the Pokemon catchers, it's sticking to that standard game plan of just kind of swinging on whatever is in the active spot until eventually you do win.
Michael is leaning on the Iron Bundle and the Prime Catcher for his way to move whatever the active Pokemon is out of the active spot. One other thing that Iono did for Michael last turn is it did send his Prime Catcher to the bottom of the deck. That would have been a pretty good card to be hanging on to in this spot, so you could guarantee gust up a Lugia V.
And maybe Lugia V can be found off of Great Ball. You look at the top 7 cards of your deck, find any Pokemon that you can grab there.
I don't see much. Wellspring Mask, Ogerpon. Looks like Lugia V-Star is going to be the grab.
That's the wrong half of the puzzle, Chip.
It is the wrong half of the puzzle. If Yerko cannot bench a Lugia V this turn, I think that's when you really have to get into the territory of considering just moving on to game 2.
Yeah, just conceding. Even if you have the Lugia V-Star, especially with Minccino being knocked out, there's no threat of Chinchino to affect the prize trade.
Really needs it here off these 7.
Lugia V found off of Great Ball number 2. So Yerko does still have a chance to stay alive in this game. Still pretty tenuous indeed, but it just comes down to as well what Michael's response will be. If there's, one boss's orders or maybe that Prime Catcher somehow being fished out of the deck, it's just going to be a quick scoop up, I imagine.
Yerko actually did have Ultra Ball in hand, so he had a guaranteed way to get a Lugia
No
V.
boss's orders in this deck either.
Yeah, the only way Michael has to move something from the bench to the active is the single Prime Catcher or that Iron Bundle, which of course he can't use with his bench being full at the moment. But yeah, with Yerko having an Ultra Ball in hand, I think he actually maybe would have preferred to hit an Archeops off of that Great Ball, give himself a chance to Ultra Ball 2 Archeops away, go ahead and get 2 into the discard pile, and then still find your Lugia V. And now he has a tough choice. What is the other card he is going to discard here? Archeops is obviously the easy one, and it looks like it will be an Iono.
Yeah, agonizing over this choice. I think that as the game goes on, the Ionos are great to make sure that your special energies stay in the deck so they can be attached with Archeops. But has to Ultra Ball to find the second Archeops now. We know Lugia V-Star is already in the hand. That's ready to go for next turn. No Jet Energy here to read the wind.
He's, I think, maybe debating if the Archeops is what he wants to grab off the Ultra Ball. The rest of his hand is pretty awkward. It looks like it's Blood Moon, Ursaluna, Lugia V-Star, a Gift Energy, and a Research. So he could research away this Archeops, but then he's going to be looking for a Lugia V-Star on the next turn. Does he want to do that, or would he be content to just hold this hand, attach an energy card, and just cross his fingers that this Lugia doesn't go down?
If Yerco has a better idea of what this section looks like, nothing's been given away regarding the Duskull or anything, and if you know your Raging Bolt matchups as you've analyzed, Chip, that you can read this is a Gustless version, but Professor's Research indeed is the supportive return. Going to discard Lugia V-Star and that other Archeops, hoping to just get a second one for next turn.
And Yerco with this play, I think, is looking for another Lugia V as well to put down just in case this one gets gusted, but he did not find it. He has the V-Star, but no other V, and this is a big opening for Michael Lehotsky. He can run away with this game if he can find his single copy of Prime Catcher.
Heavy ball played once again, just to get it out of the hand. Shuffles these prizes around. Maybe Professor Sada's once again moving down to the bottom of the prizes after the second heavy ball. But with the bench full, no Iron Bundle, no threat of the Prime Catcher because of Iono.
I don't think the deck has been shuffled since the Iono on Michael's end, so I'm pretty sure that means that Prime Catcher is on the bottom of the deck.
Yeah, Trekking Shoes, Rare Candy, no Duskull in play. Just digging through, trying to fortify this already amazing setup. So it seems that this Lugia V is going to survive the turn.
He's using a lot of resources here. He only plays 3 Night Stretcher and then the 2 Energy Retrieval. He does have 1 Superior Energy Retrieval as well. You definitely can run into a risky spot as the Raging Bolt player. If you get rid of too many of your energy recovery cards, you could have a hard time finding them later on.
And an Earthen Vessel being played as well means that almost all of the energy should be out of this deck at this point. Superior Energy Retrieval is still there. Professor Sada is still there. And this is kind of the gimmick. You get all of the energy out of the deck, you thin as many cards as you can, draw with Ogre Pond as much as possible. Then in the later stages of the game, Professor Sada and Palpad really up the odds that you're going to be able to get the energies attached directly from the discard pile. And hopefully he can offset using these Night Stretchers and whatnot so early. Even an Energy Retrieval had been lost earlier on in the game.
The one thing that Michael is looking for here is that Prime Catcher, and I think it may come down to the 3 cards he sees from this Professor Sada's Vitality. Does he find Prime Catcher to KO the only Lugia V from Yerco?
Oh,
and he finds it! Oh my gosh!
And this has got to be a scoop from Yerco. You Prime Catcher, bring up Lugia V.
Yep.
And that is the game. Michael Lehotsky, a beautiful setup, thinned the deck down as much as possible to draw into Prime Catcher and take game 1.
Yeah, great game there for Michael's side of the table. Yerco obviously missing a Lugia V on his first turn and then only finding the one on the second turn of the game was just a massive opening, and Michael was able to take advantage. He was moving ahead really far in prize cards, and Yerco was going to be yet another turn away from getting Archeops into play.
That's the type of Lugia game that you see when you don't play Lugia. Yeah, I tried Lugia a couple times, and the deck didn't really seem to come together for me. It's because you hit the variants like this, Chip. Your opponent setting up, drawing so many cards, doing everything they'd like to do under the sun, and you're stuck with Iron Hands and Minccino.
Yeah, and that's all that Yerco had to work with. And the Sada draw here at the end of this game was the difference maker. The fact that Michael was able to find Earthen Vessel as well to shuffle the deck because we knew the Prime Catcher was on the bottom, and it was the second card grab here, the perfect thing to find.
Yeah, absolutely beautiful. And Michael didn't really give away a lot in that match, I feel. You know, it's Prime Catcher as a gusting option, and I don't know if the Duskull or the Rare Candy or the Duskmar had even been revealed into the discard pile or anything of that nature.
No.
So this could be a completely different game number 2 with the Lugia deck. You you know how it is, Chip. You give them another chance to shuffle the cards and try again, and suddenly they have double Lugia V, Ultra Ball discarding 2 Archeops, and it's the other side of the coin, certainly.
As we're getting into game number 2 here, one thing to point out is that Yerco did choose to go second, which I actually do like in this matchup specifically as Lugia. You know, most of the time, you think you want to go first as Lugia so that you can turn to, get a Lugia V-Star, get a couple Archeops in play. But the risk you run in this matchup specifically is the Raging Bolt player completely popping off, getting the Prime Catcher play, KOing your 1 Lugia V. So by giving yourself an opportunity to play a supporter on your first turn, that's why Yerco has chosen to go second here, so that he can play a supporter, he has a better setup, and he can try to get himself 2 Lugia V, a pair of Lugia V onto the bench.
The Lugia players recognizing how they have to shift their game plan from matchup to matchup is so important at this level. And Michael, just looking through the deck now, has Earthen Vessel as his opener, showing off the Briar, which does see play here and there in a lot of Raging Bolt decks, to grab a Fighting and a Lightning Energy.
Yeah, I really only like the Briar in Raging Bolt if you are also playing Dusknoir as a way to offset the prize trade. You know, if someone forces a single prizer at you, and it's a way you can more actively use the Briar.
Pokestop enters play and is activated. Ogre Pawn and Professor Sadas go to the discard pile, and Michael's rewarded with a switch card instead. Double Nest Ball being played. So now Michael's going to search the deck for 2 basic Pokemon and put them directly on the bench. Raging Bolt EX is found. The other one's got to be, Radiant Greninja. I like that. We do know that there's plenty of energy in the hand to discard with concealed cards to draw 2 more here.
Yeah, it's a little interesting to see Michael choose to use the Pokestop before using Squawk and Seize. To me, this signifies that maybe Michael is not going to use Squawk and Seize. He may have too many valuable resources in his hand at the moment. But I think most people would think, yeah, if you're going to use Squawk and Seize, just save the Pokestop for the other end of it.
And we saw this day 1, right, where a Raging Bolt player starts to pop off and draw so many cards, and you increase the odds of having too many good cards. But Squawk and Seize will be the ability used now. So Pheasantipity, Rare Candy goes to the discard pile.
Yeah, I'm really honestly surprised that the Pokestop got used then, considering what the rest of the hand is. The only other way I can think it would make sense is if you had your Pal Pad in the hand, maybe you use your Pokestop, see if you can get a little bit more set up before you use the Squawk and Seize. You know you're going to use Pal Pad anyway, so you feel safe. That safety blanket from having to discard Professor Sada's Vitality off the Pokestop, and that's what we saw happen. A Pokestop did make a Sada go down.
But a second one was found off of Trekking Shoes. Now Concealed Cards is being played, discarding a Grass Energy to draw 2, and another Nest Ball being found. This has got to grab an Ogre Pawn, I imagine.
It can grab an Ogre Pawn if Michael has a Grass Energy in hand. He can grab one with a Energy Retrieval, it looks like. You also could want to establish another Raging Bolt here if you're just hoping to use Professor Sada's next turn for maximum value. But if you want to keep on drawing this turn, Ogre Pawn is definitely the way to do it.
Oh yeah, this is risky. The second Raging Bolt will be picked up because, as you said, Chip, there's no Grass Energy. Better to get the second attacker. Prepare for the Professor Sada's Vitality. We'll have to see if Yerco can respond to this with maybe an Iono on the next turn to sort of foil this. This will be the second Professor Sada's Vitality that Michael might lose access to if that's the case.
Michael will send it over to Yerco now, who, like we've mentioned, is looking for a couple Lugia V to help him out. And I don't think his hand is amazing. He's actually going to start off with a Pokestop.
Grabs an Ultra Ball from that Mist Energy, and I believe that was a second Stadium going to the discard pile.
No, it's a Capturing Aroma added to the hand, which is not too bad here. Yeah, the Ultra Ball hit is pretty huge, and a Heads on the Capturing Aroma.
Yes, so with Heads on Capturing Aroma, Yerco can search out an Archeops or any evolution Pokemon rather, depending on what the rest of the hand is. So this is Archeops, an Ultra Ball. We haven't seen Lugia V as of yet.
Yeah, the Archeops can be grabbed here. The Ultra Ball can go get the Lugia V. I don't know what supporter Yerco has in hand. His prize cards are honestly kind of awkward. The Weirdeer is a nice way to take a big one-hit knockout on one of the high HP Raging Bolts, and also a pair of Boss's Orders. It can be nice to try to get around Raging Bolt. Lugia has an easier time KOing something like the Squawkabilly that's already on Michael's bench, maybe a future Teal Mask Ogre Pawn. But with 2 boss prized, Yerco may not have as much access to that card as he would like.
I did see a Lumineon V in the hand, if I'm not mistaken. Do you ever just search in for the Research or the Iono?
I could see the Jack being the play here, to be honest. I do like this, replace the Stadium and go for the Messagoza here. And I think the rest of this turn is going to really depend on what happens with the Messagoza. And indeed, a heads will yield Yerko one more Pokemon.
When you flip heads on Messagoza, you can grab anything. So this is beautiful to get the second Archeops. And the Ultra Ball is waiting and ready to go.
Yep, sure enough, and that is the perfect pair to be discarding with an Ultra Ball as well.
Leaving the Archeops on the table like that is just, you just know it's coming.
It's
so
a
Michael's
power
like,
move.
there's the Ultra Ball we saw from Pokestop already. Shortcutting, of course, finds the Lugia V.
Now the thing is, can he find another Lugia V? He opens himself up with this current situation to just having an Iron Bundle pushing this Lugia V into the active spot. And it might not be a card Yerko's really thinking of. It's not that popular in Raging Bolt. People do play it from time to time, and I don't know if he's going to put another basic Pokemon in play. He may be content holding onto this hand, and that is a pretty big risk. It does look like Lumineon will come down, so we will probably see a supporter of some sort.
Also keeping track of this Vitality Band.
We're actually
looking
maybe
at
going
the
to
Arven.
See, yeah, the one of Arven, an interesting tech. You don't really see this very often in Lugia V-Star lists, but it can grab out that tech Vitality Band that Yerko is playing.
One Pokemon tool and then one item.
And I think here you can grab a Nest Ball, something to guarantee the second Lugia. So that actually works out really, really nicely.
The Arven play going off. Vitality Band, just a nice little tech. Fixing some math here and there. We know that with the threat of Bravery Charms, with these Pokemon having kind of odd HPs, the 10 can matter. The difference between 220 and 230, certainly.
Now, Yerko's hand is not super strong for the next turn, and I think that's why we've seen the Gift Energy go onto the active Minccino. He's kind of crossing his fingers that Michael just has to knock it out. He'll get to draw and fill his hand back up to 7 cards. But worst case scenario, if Michael is to gust around this Minccino, Yerko does have the bare minimum of Lugia V-Star, and if he can just put Lugia V-Star in play, he's got the pair of Archeops already, he'll be good to go. And that's what makes Lugia so strong. It's a deck that can just play from the board so well.
And Michael flips tails on the Messagoza, bumps the Stadium for Pokestop. Trekking Shoes into activating the Pokestop. Iron Bundle goes down with Earthen Vessel entering the hand. There is Prime Catcher now, too.
Yeah, the Bundle would have been a super good card to use right here. Force up a 2 prize Pokemon into the active spot. Even though Yerko would probably just happily send up the Lumineon V, it's 2 prizes. It puts Michael on that 2-2-2 prize map.
Earthen Vessel discards Dusknoir. We saw earlier the rare candies in the discard pile no longer has access to that play. Just going to stick to a standard Raging Bolt game plan. And despite how well Michael is setting up, still needs a couple more Ogerpons to round out this current board state. If you get the early lid on Lugia, if they get the 2 Archeops in play, as you said, Chip, they're going to just start running the game back against you pretty handily.
Yeah, I actually think Michael may not be looking to get any Archeops in, or not Archeops, excuse me, any Teal Mask Ogerpon into play here because those are easy knockouts in the future for Yerko. Sure, right now Yerko can easily knock out the Squawkabilly EX, but Michael's thinking ahead. He's thinking into future turns. If he only has a pair of Raging Bolt in play, and then he's taking down this Minccino right now, he's not going to be at risk of having one of his Raging Bolts KO'd.
Professor Sada's Vitality is played, attaching 2 energy and also drawing 3 cards. This means that Michael's going to be hoarding additional resources in hand, trying to save these Teal Masks for combination plays to accelerate the energy into play exactly on the turn that you need the extra boost of damage.
I'll be interested to see what comes into play from the Nest Ball. He could still go with the Teal Mask Ogerpon, and it looks like that will be the case, just valuing the draw power over worrying too much about the options that he is providing to Yerko with the benching of this Pokemon. He can still go for a 2-2-2 prize map, but that could get messed up if Yerko's able to weave in the Legacy energy onto one of these Lugia V-Star in the future.
This is always so risky, you know, with the Teal Mask. You want to use the Teal Dance to attach an energy to it. Hopefully, with Bellowing Thunder, you discard that right away. You don't want to leave a bunch of energy in play and give your opponent the option to preemptively knock out that Ogerpon. Energy Retrieval finds 2 Grass Energy, however, to draw 1 with Teal Dance and a ton of Grass Energy in hand with a second Teal Mask. And Michael is going full all in. Another Teal Mask Ogerpon enters the bench.
He does have the Prime Catcher, so he could use that to go after a 2 prize Pokemon here. could be decent, but I also don't really hate dealing with the issue of the Minccino. It does put you on odd prizes, which would be the main reason to not do that. But again, like I mentioned, Yerco can get around the 2-2-2 prize trade by working in the legacy energy. So let's see how Michael approaches this.
It's going to be Pal Pad to put in 2 Professor Sada's Vitality, just sticking to the classic game plan as it seems for now. Michael might just be adopting the stance as a Raging Bolt player as I'm going to go with my plan A until you absolutely force me to consider something else.
Yeah, that's a great time to use the Pal Pad as well. I think Iono would be a reasonable supporter to expect from Yerco on the next turn. So using Pal Pad here gives you more opportunity to draw into a Professor Sada's Vitality if your opponent does disrupt your current hand.
And if you're Michael, the Prime Catcher is also still in the hand, but as you said, Chip, just knocking out this Minccino is fine. You're going to get 1 prize card now, maybe 0 in the future. This is a small Pokemon that can trade up into 2 prizes, so we might as well activate the gift energy and take 1 prize.
Yep, 2 cards drawn for Yerco from the gift. It looks like he does have a couple Lugia V-Star now.
Lugia V enters the active spot, evolves into Lugia V-Star, double evolution immediately into Summoning Star to get the 2 Archeops that were set aside in the discard pile. Now the setup is complete. There's 1 more slot on the bench for another attacker.
We'll be using Primal Turbo right away. I think he does have Boss's Orders in the hand. So I think going after the Squawkabilly here, maybe one of those Ogerpon makes a lot of sense. Depends on which energy cards he has to use. He actually can use double turbo energy with the Vitality Band that he has. It still lets him get to 210 damage so that he can knock out one of those 210 HP Ogerpon on the bench while using one of his double turbo energy cards.
Vitality Band was grabbed again off of that tech card Arvin. Beautiful stuff to fix this math. With the second Primal Turbo finds a missed energy. So now the Tempest Dive on this active Lugia is ready to go. The attached return going to the second Lugia V-Star on the bench. Yerco is prepping beautifully for the I'm going to hunt down your support Pokemon game plan. Boss's Orders brings up Teal Mask Ogerpon, and with the Vitality Band, that is 210 damage for the knockout.
Yep,
and there we go. Discards the
here.
Pokestop as well.
Perfect math. Yeah, we'll definitely want to get rid of that Pokestop, one of the main draw options that Michael has access to. Pokestop's so strong in the Raging Bolt deck. You play so many item cards. We joked yesterday how sometimes Pokestop just becomes a draw 3 card. It's not what happened here.
So getting on the board, taking 2 prize cards, a Boss's Orders being taken off the prize cards, if I saw there correctly. And it's back over to Michael Lehotsky. Teal Mask Ogerpon going down means that that's less draw power, means that there's less Teal Dances to put energy in play, so your Bellowing Thunder doesn't hit back quite as hard. But Lugia only has 280 HP. Looks like there's still plenty of energy to be had to knock out this active Lugia, but where does Michael go from there?
I think step 1 with the Pheasantipity seems pretty good. Use that, flip the script, draw yourself a few more cards. And you can kind of see in this position, it does feel like Yerco is in a really solid spot, but if Michael had pulled off the Iron Bundle on the last turn, it would have put him in a pretty good position.
Pokegear being found off the Pokestop, another one entering play. Michael does not want to give up on this potential draw power whatsoever. Still looking at the energy in the discard pile, taking stock. You had mentioned earlier, Chip, that there is one superior energy retrieval in this deck. Teal Dance being used to draw a second Pokegear.
I think here is Michael to have a chance to win. He needs to be setting up for, in a future turn, to go for the play of Prime Catcher, KO the Lumineon, and also Iono Yerco at the same time. Try to get around gift energy, give Yerco as few cards as possible, and then just kind of approach things from there. Can be the Lumineon or even one of the Archeops at this point since he's on odd prizes.
Pokegear doesn't seem to find anything. Just evaluating the discard pile, you can see as the game goes longer, the resources that Michael has in order to recover energy and accelerate this energy becomes more constrained. Concealed cards being used to discard a fighting and draw 2. Iono is picked up, possibly as part of that later game strategy you mentioned, Chip. Superior energy retrieval will be used. And what is the discard? Second Pokegear, Raging Bolt EX.
Yeah, and I don't like going for the Iono plus Prime Catcher play right now. I think it's good next turn when Yerco's going to have just 2 prize cards remaining.
And you can bring back up to 4 energy with the superior energy retrieval. Michael opts for just 2 grass energy.
wants to make sure he has energy cards in the discard pile to use Sada. It's a little interesting to see because he's going to have to discard so many energy here anyway. Oh, and he's actually using the Iono right now, and I don't think I like this. I really want to see that card be combined with the use of Prime Catcher to get around the gift energy. I think that would be Michael's best chance. From here, though, it's just going to be a game for Yerco of finding boss's orders turn after turn.
And you're also shuffling another grass energy back into the deck. I don't know what Michael was maybe digging for there. Just more Professor Sadas, perhaps. Vezendipity to finally flip the script and draw 3. Has Professor Sadas. And Michael maybe playing this one a little bit too straightforward, Chip.
Well, and Michael doesn't know it, but he did just send Yerko's boss to the bottom of the deck. The boss that he took off the prize cards. Now, Yerko is really going to be off this gift energy, I think, looking for a way to find Luminion V. If he can find Luminion V, he can find boss's orders, and he'll put himself on this same prize map.
So the ability markers are being cleared. Now the attack will finally be commenced. 4 energies discard to deal 280 to the active Lugia V-Star. Yerko draws up to 7 cards in hand because of the gift energy.
And one of the cards found was indeed Ultra Ball, and I believe the second copy of Luminion V should be in the deck. The thing as well for Yerko is he is going to want to try to establish another attacker, right? He can use this Lugia V-Star to take 2 prizes, probably KOing the Vezendipity EX if I had to imagine.
Yeah, Michael had already used a lot of Night Stretchers this game.
And then Yerko's really just going to be looking for, I think, Blood Moon Ursaluna seems like the most straightforward way to win the game on the next turn.
Finally promotes the Lugia V-Star and draws for turn. All the pieces are in hand, just has to decide which of these two cards are the weakest to discard to the Ultra Ball and find Luminion.
And you also could use the Pokestop here as Yerko. The only card you really need is Boss's Orders. I think you would potentially run the risk of discarding a Luminion V. I don't remember if the Luminion V was in the hand as well, and it got sent to the bottom in addition to the boss. So if Luminion is in, you definitely don't want to use the Pokestop, but you could run the risk of milling that card, which is really what you need here. Yerko's going to take stock of his energy card, something you always have to keep track of as a Lugia V-Star player.
You can tell how this is such a pivotal turn. Even hesitating on the Primal Turbo. Do I want to shuffle this deck first? Luminion there on the bottom.
Yeah, so it was on the bottom, so you could have theoretically ripped the Pokestop. I think maybe one of the potential concerns by utilizing Pokestop in that position would be the chance that you mill too many energy cards. And that is kind of... Lugia really doesn't like using Pokestop for that reason. You play so many energy cards.
And there is only 1 copy of Vitality Band in the list. It was attached to the other Lugia V-Star that got knocked out, so the math is no longer there to start hunting down these Ogre Pawns.
Yeah, I mean, if he doesn't put a double turbo on, he's still A-OK, and that's exactly what we've seen here.
Oh, I see. He's getting around it. Nice. Very nice.
Still being able to do the 220.
So does need to avoid using the double turbo energies and just attach a bunch of single energies like we're seeing here, Chip. Luminion V enters the bench finally in order to bring up Boss's Orders, and we'll see if he's also going to go along with your lines to take out Vezendipity, but no. Opts for Teal Mask Ogre Pawn. This feels a little bit more solid, Chip, seeing how many Night Stretchers have been expended and taking existing energy out of play and maybe taking some damage away from future Bellowing Thunders.
Yeah, it's true, but I think taking away Flip the Script is pretty good here. I mean, all Michael needs is a Sada and
this would be a really big debate.
Card. If he has a Sada and an energy card, he's got everything he needs in order to take the knockout on this active Lugia V-Star.
Quadruple Turbo on the Luminion V on the bench.
We're adding new cards out here, Scarzy. I think here Yerko's just thinning those cards out. They're not super useful. All he really needs to win the game next turn is Blood Moon Ursaluna. He hasn't seen a Bravery Charm from Michael at this point in either Game 1 or here in Game 2. I think he is making the assumption with all the other cards he's seen, the Dusknor, the Rare Candy, all of that, that there is no Bravery Charm in this list. So Blood Moon Ursaluna's Blood Moon will be able to do 240 to knock out a Raging Bolt here. And actually, with Michael being on odd prizes, Yerko won't even need an energy card on this Blood Moon Ursaluna. He'll be able to attack for free.
And Michael top decks the Night Stretcher, so he's looking through the discard pile now, thinking about the math. Do I need to get an Ogre Pawn back? There is a Professor Sadas in the hand as well.
And see here, if Michael had Prime Catcher plus Iono, take a prize on an Archeops or 2 prizes on Luminion V, it'd probably be better. Then you put Yerco down to just 2 cards, and you're saying, okay, you have to, off of your 2 cards from this Iono, have your final boss's orders. But it's not a play available. Michael using his Iono on the last turn.
Professor Sada's Vitality attaches 2 energies to draw 3 cards. All the rest of the Professor Sada's are in the hand. Night Stretcher brings back Teal Mask Ogerpon. You can choose a basic Pokemon, or rather any Pokemon or an energy card to put back into your hand and onto the bench. Teal Dance to draw 1 more. Michael's looking to deck out here pretty soon, but the game is going to be closing either way.
Yeah, Michael does need to be careful. He has already expended Pal Pad. It's the only way he can put cards back into the deck.
So you got to slow your roll here. Just going to Bellowing Thunder, discarding 4 more.
And then now the question is going to be, does Yerco have it? He gets to draw from the gift energy. All he needs is the Blood Moon or a way to get it.
Because Michael goes all the way down to 1 prize card remaining, Blood Moon Ursaluna's Seasoned Skill allows it to attack for free.
Finds a Great Ball that could potentially get it, but Nest Ball can guarantee it as long as it's in the deck.
Beautiful. Blood Moon Ursaluna enters play. The energy that was attached to Luminion V allows it to retreat. Blood Moon will take the final 2 prizes.
Yerco able to tie things up, force a game 3 on this win and in match.
Now, the demonstration we just saw, Chip, completely different from game 1. Sometimes Lugia can be awkward. Sometimes you get your Archeops and you're ready to go. Vitality Band being a beautiful tech card so that Yerco doesn't need to worry about dancing around double turbo energy too much when lining up versus Ogerpon. We have yet to see Michael Lehotsky's deck really demonstrate the use of Duskull or Briar that is teched into the list, and the lack of Bravery Charm is making this a hard run, certainly.
So Michael did get rid of this threat of the Minccino early on, which I think was okay, but then he didn't play to the lines later on of Ionoing Yerco to a low hand size, and Yerco was able to just be the first one to initiate the 2/2/2 prize trade. He stayed ahead on the prize trade every single turn and was able to find boss's orders off of his prize cards. That was definitely a big deal, and then he's able to close out this game.
As we head into game 3, both players have really shown everything that their decks are capable of, what they potentially could do in terms of plays, and we'll have to see if Michael makes that adjustment, waiting for a later game Iono plus Iron Bundle idea.
As we're waiting for this game to get underway, our players are almost done setting up. We can update everyone else what has happened out on the floor.
Oh,
of course, the first 2 tables have ID'd, so those 4 players are locked in. But then of our other notable matches, Kieran Farrer was able to win, Kyle Lesniewicz was able to win, Michael Davidson was able to win. So that means that if this game here in the next 13 minutes has a conclusive winner, we're going to have a clean cut of 8 players. No asymmetrical cut today. Only 8 players will move on. But if this 13 minutes goes a little long, if these players are not able to determine a clear-cut winner in 13 minutes plus 3 turns, that means we are going to have a massive top cut with a ton of X and 2s sneaking in.
So this is the match of fate. I don't know when these players sat down if they knew it was going to be a top 8 win and in, but this is what it's come down to, Chip. And I think you want to get the win regardless of the situation. When you sit down and look into your opponent's eyes, you know that you want to prove that you're better than them. Looks like Yerko's going to get an extra card from Michael's mulligan. They're still setting up. Looks like prize cards are finally entering. And there's the fist bump. The basic Pokemon are being flipped. And we're heading down to the table for game number 3. Michael starting things off with Teal Mask Ogerpon in the active spot, and Yerko has Iron Hands in his active. Teal Dance for 1 draw. Anything else to be done with this hand, Chip? Trekking Shoes?
Yeah, it looks like we're going to have to take a little peek here with the shoes for a little more help. There is a Pokestop in the hand.
Pokegear is discarded. Earthen Vessel will be found instead. So now by discarding a Fighting Energy, we can get some grass. 1 more draw from Teal Mask Ogerpon. There's a chance with this draw and the Pokestop to find Nest Ball to get Squawkabilly and open this first turn wide open.
It's really interesting to see that Michael chose to go first here. You know, in game number 2, Yerko had the option of what he wanted to do, and he chose to go second. So Michael is effectively giving Yerko what he wants here, the opportunity to go second to get more established. And those are some pretty interesting prizes to note. I mean, the Briar's not too big of a deal. An Energy Retrieval, I guess, could come up. The big one there, Skarzig Prime Catcher is prized for Michael Lehotsky.
In game 1 and in game 2, Prime Catcher was such a key card to put pressure on Yerco's setup. If you don't have an extra benched Pokemon, if you only have one Lugia V, the threat of Prime Catcher to close out the game immediately is much too great, but that's not going to be an option here for us, Chip. Second Teal Mask Ogerpon enters play, uses Teal Dance to draw one more. Pokestop still an option.
And I don't think I would hate to see the Pokestop just utilized here. His hand is not super good. He has no ancient Pokemon.
Ooh, but decides to play it slow. Doesn't want to use the Pokestop. You mentioned earlier that Lugia doesn't like to use Pokestop, but if Yerco is very desperate for an Ultra Ball or a Nest Ball to get some sort of setup, Michael wants to deny that. With Iron Hands in the active, Michael thinks that there's going to be plenty of time for him to set up behind this big Pokemon stuck in the active. Yerco plays Professor's Research to discard the hand and draw 7. We'll see what he gets from this, Chip.
He did have to get rid of a couple supporters to do that, but really the big one after he sets up is just going to be Boss's Orders. Can he find Boss's Orders turn after turn after turn? And he is able to find a Nest Ball here, which can get the second Lugia V, can protect himself from the potential of his only Lugia being KO'd.
The Ogerpons in play, withholding the Pokestop, does say that Michael wasn't confident, right, that there was going to be another Nest Ball or something to be seen.
Yeah, I
get
really,
the Raging Bolt or Squawkabilly.
I really think Michael just needed to rip the Band-Aid there. You've got to use the Pokestop. He's already got Sada in his hand, and I have a feeling what he's going to do this turn is put the Pokestop in play and use it. He could have used Pokestop effectively twice, so now he's only giving himself one opportunity to get out of his kind of sticky situation.
And when you're playing an aggressive deck and with less than 10 minutes on the clock in a game that needs to conclude to guarantee your top 8 berth, that means you need to take those big risks, take those big swings, and get a W. But after the deck is shuffled up with Nest Ball finding a second Lugia V, Yerco is sitting pretty.
I think that's all Yerco has. He's got several Archeops in hand. We need to find one more way to discard one more next turn. The draw for Michael is a Professor Sada, and what do you know? Pokestop comes down.
Yeah, even if you have Professor Sada's Vitality, you need some ancient Pokemon to attach those energy to. Pheasantipity and Iron Bundle go to the discard pile.
And he's just got nothing now. He is in a terrible position. He has to retreat this active Ogerpon, retreat off the grass energy, and then he can use energy retrieval to bring it back to use Teal Dance again.
And his fate dangles on this one card. And what are we looking for at this point? You can't use Squawkabilly.
At least a Nest Ball, I think. Give yourself an Ogerpon into play.
Energy retrieval brings back grass energy. Leave the fighting energy there for Professor Sada.
Yep, very smart.
And there is Teal Dance.
Debating which Ogerpon he wants to use Teal Dance on. I think the active makes sense because you could at least attack this turn, but he'll do it on the bench.
Oh, and there's the punish.
Well, there's one more grass energy, so he can keep drawing. And he does find a Nest Ball. Okay, this can get him out of this.
He's still in there.
I do just want to point out he would have found that Nest Ball off of the Pokestop if he had used Pokestop twice. So, you know, just saying.
Yeah, there is a little bit of pressure, right? In a situation like this, getting into Game 3, you don't want to play Pokestop because there is just a small percentage that maybe you're giving your opponent a lot of help to get set up. But in this matchup specifically, I think you're right, Chip. You've got to be greedier.
Well, you want your opponent to use Pokestop as Lugia. If your opponent is having to be a Lugia player using Pokestop, that means they are in a terrible position.
And Professor Sada's Vitality just finding one target to draw 3 more cards. Earthen Vessel thinning down the hand even further. Radiant Greninja was picked up as well from Professor Sada's Vitality's draw. So that's 2 more cards to be seen. Hopefully we can continue to bolster this setup, even though this first turn was pretty awkward.
Yeah, and Michael can't even pull off a reasonable attack here. He's already retreated for turn. You can only retreat once per turn in the Pokemon TCG. So if he wants to pull off a Raging Bolt 2 prize KO into the active Iron Hands from Yerco, Michael is going to need to find his one-of copy of Switch Cart or his one-of copy of Prime Catcher. That's the only way Michael is able to take a knockout here.
And it would be so sad if you can't get the switch, you can manually attach to Ogerpon and just deal a little bit of damage to the Iron Hands EX.
It's not even relevant damage. Though.
Exactly.
It's going to be one-hit KOing that thing later on, right?
But I'm not seeing it, Chip. Lost Vacuum doesn't do much. A couple energies in hand. Concealed Cards is already used. There's another Ogerpon.
You can look one more time.
The overbenching, it's very, very rough. Suing Heavy Ball was picked up, however, from Teal Dance. Can look in the prize cards and see exactly what's going on there. There is a Raging Bolt to be had.
Yeah, of course the Prime Catcher was prized, so literally a single card Michael could have found there would have been the switch card, and he just can't do it, and he'll have to pass. And Yerko will be just loving this. He is absolutely in the driver's seat in this game.
With 2 Lugia V, this is 2 potentials for the Lugia V-Star, once more leading into this beautiful arrow dive, the Tempest dive with the Vitality Band to knock out the Ogerpon in the active. That's 2 energies leaving play. Prime Catcher moves a little bit further down the prize cards for Michael, but if you can't get these first couple of knockouts, that's going to be irrelevant.
And Yerko's got a pretty good setup here. He has that one of Arven in his hand. He can
again.
He can grab Ultra Ball. He can discard the Archeops from his hand. The Ultra Ball can get him the Lugia V-Star, and he can also find that Vitality Band, so he can use it to knock out this active Ogerpon while using a double turbo energy on his benched Lugia V-Star.
Such a beautiful tech. The massive difference that just 10 extra damage can make. And there it is, Ultra Ball discarding 2 Archeops from the hand to grab Lugia V-Star. Summoning Star now will get 2 Archeops in play. Is there enough attachments to power up the Lugia and also get this Iron Hands EX out of the active?
He's just barely going to be able to do it. So he can use 1 Primal Turbo to accelerate 2 energy to the active, one of them being a double turbo, one of them being another energy card. And then he can use the other Primal Turbo to accelerate 2 double energies to the bench Lugia V-Star. He has a double turbo energy in his hand, and that will piece everything together for him to perfectly be able to maneuver here. It is a lot of energy going down for just 1 attack, but it is totally worth it in this position.
Just you have to extend for the aggression, for the positioning at this point, Chip. In game number 3, 4 minutes left on the clock, and Yerko's maybe hoping to just break his opponent's spirit at this point, get so far ahead and force the concession. There's the Primal Turbo for the double turbo onto the active to cover Iron Hand's massive 4 retreat cost. And finally, the second Primal Turbo to attach 2 single energies using the double turbo as the attachment return from hand, and a big retreat into the active spot. This is the knockout with Tempest Dive, discarding the Pokestop as well.
And it's going to be a similar situation to game number 2. Yerko, from here on out, is looking for boss's orders next turn. Needs to KO one of these Ogerpon, and then he'll hope to clean up the game with Blood Moon Ursaluna KOing a Raging Bolt EX.
Michael Lehotsky debating on what to promote. Was thinking about the Ogerpon there for a second, but has to go for Raging Bolt. With a Professor Sawdust Vitality or just an attach from hand, the attack is already there to swing for 280, but you're kind of behind in the prize race with Yerko getting those first 2 prizes of the game.
I think luckily here for all of us, the clock shouldn't be too much of a factor. There is just about 3.5 minutes remaining here, and I think that is enough time for either of these players to potentially finish, depending on how long this turn takes here for Michael Lehotsky.
Lost Vacuum to take away the Vitality Band tells me that he might not be able to get the KO this turn. Wants to just take away the Vitality Band to protect the rest of the Ogerpons on the bench.
It could just be thinning out a card that he doesn't need anymore. Might as well use the Lost Vacuum, get rid of this Raging Bolt. You don't need more than 2 Raging Bolt to get through the rest of this game, right? If your 2 Raging Bolt get KO'd, you lose the game regardless.
Okay, there is the Professor Sawdust, so the attack is live. 3 cards drawn as well.
Looks like Pal Pad being debated.
And now, is it the right time to maybe put 1 Professor Sawdust back, 2? We're still hoping to see the late game Iono counterplay from Michael, if that's ever going to be available. It's just such a shame that the Duskull, Rare Candy, Dusknoir, Briar didn't line up in this matchup, as you said, Chip, as a way to kind of fix your prize trade after knocking out a single prize Pokemon, and with Briar as an explosive threat to close out. With Raging Bolt playing a much more straight-up game into Lugia, as long as Lugia gets set up, it seems to always take over.
Definitely still a great position here for Yerko, but Michael's not out of it. He's going to play to his outs here, and taking this knockout is a great first step. 280 damage, 1-hit KOs the Lugia V-Star, and I'm not even sure if Yerko's going to be able to draw too many cards off the gift energy. Looks like it will be a couple, not too bad.
Just 2, finds Legacy Energy, that's pretty good.
Yeah, honestly, one of the options here for Yerko, he needs to boss, right? He could boss up one of the Ogerpon. Yeah, I guess he could just get through the active with this Blood Moon Ursaluna, and that looks like the path he has chosen to go with. But Legacy Energy can be used on the Iron Hands to actually get 2 prizes on Radiant Greninja. That's another way that Yerco could close this game out.
I was a little worried, only having the Legacy Energy, no main deck Lightning Energy, the Ryko, and the Iron Hands are going to be fighting over which one gets to attack, but you no longer need to employ these. The Lugia with Vitality Band has lined up to be an attacker in the spotlight for this list. Typically, modern Lugia decks tend to lean into their supporting cast with either the Wellspring Mask, Ogerpon, etc. But I love that Lugia V-Star is rising back to prominence and hitting these numbers because of Vitality Band.
Yerco will attach a couple here, has one more from hand, so Blood Moon is online, 240 damage. Less than a minute left in this turn. There's a chance that if Yerco finishes his turn here, that Michael will draw, and Michael will be turn 0. That would be great for Yerco. It means he has 2 more chances to win the game. But if time is cold on his turn, he'll be the one who's turn 0, and he'll be forced to try to find a way to win on the next turn.
Because Yerco had to expend so much energy on that specific turn to retreat the Iron Hands and power up the Lugia V-Star, he is getting a little bit stuck in the weeds, evaluating where all of the special energy is still remaining. A lot has been attached to the Blood Moon Ursaluna, and now he needs to have a little bit left over for a potential Cinccino play, and there is the knockout. 23 seconds left on the clock, and it's over to Michael. Promotes and draws for turn.
Michael will be turn 0 here. Time will be called shortly, and that means Michael will have this turn plus 1 more, and Yerco will have 2 turns. So the mission here for Michael is going to be find a way to deny Yerco from taking 2 prizes next turn. And probably his best bet, I don't know that there is one, to be honest. If he gust KOs the Lugia V on the bench and uses Iono, that means Yerco gets to keep this Blood Moon Ursaluna. If he just KOs the active, Yerco has a large hand size. He'll get gift energy even if you Iono him, and there's a pretty good chance Yerco can just win with something like a Cinccino evolving and KOing whatever the active Pokemon is. So it's really, really a tough position here for Michael. Let's see if he can find a way to navigate out of it.
Draws 3 from Professor Sada's Vitality. There's a Night Stretcher. All the Professor Sadas are still there waiting to keep the chain of attacks going, but because of the timing, because of the lack of tempo, Michael doesn't have enough time or turns in order to get this knockout. Night Stretcher for a Grass Energy in order to activate Teal Dance and draw 1 more. Still digging, looking desperate for a way out of the situation, Chip.
Using the Dusknoir next turn maybe could lead to some sort of play for Michael.
We know that the Blood Moon Ursaluna can't attack back-to-back with Blood Moon.
That is true. It's something he could try to take advantage of here, maybe just hitting the active for a little bit and also Ionoing here. That actually, okay, so that could be the play, right? Michael hits this active Blood Moon for just a little bit, plays the Iono, and then leaves Yerco with just a couple cards to work with and forces him to have it. And then next turn, Michael uses the Dusknoir to take the knockout and then knock out something else on the bench, but he doesn't go for it as it stands, and Yerco is just going to draw for turn. Does he have the pieces to win the game right here? It looks like he does.
The Cinccino goes into the active spot. There is the Ultra Ball to find the Cinccino. This is a 1-1 line, folks, that hasn't had a chance to really shine in this best of 3, but finally at the end of the game evolves into the attachment from Primal Turbo. There's the knockout, and Yerco Valencia wins this best of 3 to lock in that final slot for top 8 and a clean cut.
Traveling all the way to Louisville from Chile, and I think the travel has paid off at this point, locking up a spot in the top 8, ensuring we will have a clean cut as well at top 8. All of the players at X and 2, I think we're rooting for a tie in this spot, but it's not going to be the case. Yerco ensures that he moves on.
Yep. Won the Joinville Regional with Lugia, made some tweaks to that recipe to bring it to this tournament, adapt to the meta game, taking a couple of pages from Rahul Reddy's deck, apparently, and now we can take a look and see if Lugia V-Star has what it takes to win it all. This was a great back and forth, Chip. I think the Raging Bolt deck did what it wanted pretty much every single game, but just didn't have the utility that we've been seeing from these modern Raging Bolt decks to keep up with Lugia.
Yeah, you can see where Bravery Charm maybe would have been helpful to Michael in Game 2 or Game 3, force Yerco to have a lot more. And I think there was an opportunity for Michael to maybe make a few different decisions in game number 2 that could have given him a better chance to win the game. He would have still, needed Yerco to miss, but he didn't even go for those lines.
He didn't go for that
He just kind of
play.
walked into the opportunity for Yerco to just close out game number 2.
Yeah, there was definitely the idea to hold the Iono for later on in the game to limit Yerko's options. And then in game number 3, just having the Pokestop in play one turn earlier, seeing 3 extra cards would have been a massive difference to the amount of threat potential he had throughout the entire rest of the game.
Yeah, I mean, not taking a knockout on the second turn of the game for Michael is really what just let Yerko take control of this game. From that point on, it was almost inevitable that Yerko was going to come out ahead.
And I have to shout it out again. I was absolutely blown away by the Arven and Vitality Band technology to line up knockouts into Teal Mask Ogerpons, into Pheasantippities. This serves Lugia so well. So you have a Pokemon that can participate, and even when you have the Lugia V-Star, because that's you're always going to have one if you're actually playing a real game, and being able to maintain this Pokemon as a threat that your opponent also needs to deal with around the threat of Ampy very much, the threat of Legacy Energy and Weirdeer and things of that nature. It just gives you that little bit of extra oomph that you need.
Yeah, the Arven is honestly super good, and I think we saw in that game the reasons for it to be included in the deck. It sort of reminds me of back a couple of seasons ago whenever, we were in the broken Lugia format, Sword and Shield through Crown Zenith, where we saw nothing but Lugia, 30% of the day 1 meta, 50% of the day 2 meta. Players were utilizing
dark times.
Yeah, they were dark times. Players were utilizing a one of Irida in their list. They were utilizing a one of Skyla at times, just because sometimes all you need is just that one key piece of the puzzle, and it's a trainer card, and if you can find it at the right time, it works out massively for you. And it sort of serves a similar function. The addition of the Vitality Band does fix a lot of the math.